Chapter 1. I had another dream last night, about that day. Dinah bowed her head and plucked a blade of grass, turning it over in her gloved fingers. A frigid breeze sighed through the cemetery, the hillside bleak and treeless even in spring. Red curls fell from the messy coil at the crown of her head and fluttered in front of her downcast eyes. "It's been 10 years, Mama said to me. Find a way to move on. She's tired of my moping. Wants me to be more like Daniel. She's so proud of him. Always going on about how great he is for getting out of Kansas and leaving us in this mess." Dinah huffed and threw the grass into the wind, her weary gaze wandering west towards Salina. Once so small and barely civilized, now a burgeoning city sprawling along the snaking path of the Smoky Hill River. "I wish I was somewhere far away," she confessed. "Somewhere no one knows me." Dinah squinted at the clouds drifting across the deep blue sky. She used to believe she could reach up and touch them if she tried, that she could go anywhere, do anything. "Is it selfish?" she asked. "Wishing I could forget." The grave gave no answer. She shifted onto her knees, tears stinging her eyes and blurring the words inscribed on the weathered headstone. Ophelia Larson, May 3rd, 1862 to May 3rd, 1873. Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. Someone had left lilies, probably Ophelia's parents, and Dinah scolded herself for her negligence. Today was the 10th anniversary of Ophelia's death, and she'd come bearing nothing but the burden of her grief. An invisible fist squeezed her heart. Dinah's tears spilled over, sliding down her cheeks and dripping into her lap, her blood boiling even in the cold. 10 years is long enough to wait. Didn't anyone care that her best friend had been murdered? That the monster who killed her still walked free? He'd shot Ophelia amid the chaos of a bank robbery in Salina, stolen every penny Dinah's father had ever saved, left her family drowning in debt, and chained her to this place she both loved and hated, her home and her hell. He can't run forever. Dinah's fingers curled against her thighs. He's gonna pay for what he's done. "Dinah." She started at the sound of her father's voice and wiped her tears on the back of her sleeve. "It's time to head home." She rose, dusted off her black split skirt, and trudged toward him, his brows furrowed under his wide-brimmed hat, a frown deepening the lines in his bearded face. "I know you're still angry," he said as they wove between the headstones. "I know you want justice." She squinted up at him, her searching gaze finding no judgment in his wise blue eyes. "So do I," he admitted. "But sometimes, a lot of times, bad men don't get what they deserve in this life. That ain't easy to swallow, especially when it's personal. I take some comfort in knowing their days are numbered." Dinah clenched her jaw and glared down the path where he'd parked the wagon. Dusty waited patiently, his golden coat gleaming in the morning sun. "How am I supposed to sleep at night?" she asked, "knowing he's still out there?" Her father sighed as their footsteps crunched through the grass. "Some mornings I wake up thinking I'm still in the uniform. Used to do all kinds of things to keep from falling asleep." Dinah glanced at him in surprise. "You did?" He had that look in his eyes, the one he always got whenever he mentioned the war, distant and haunted. "I was tired of fighting the same old battles night after night. I wanted to forget 'em. One day, I realized the only power they had over me was the power I gave them. And you know something? It got easier." She stopped beside the wagon, and he gave Dusty's neck a solid pat. Shame made her hesitate as she wrestled with her festering anger. "Every night I ask God to take away the nightmares. Why won't he?" The question emerged less of a plea and more of an accusation. Her father faced her, and Dinah braced for a scolding. "Don't ask him to take him away," he advised. "Ask him to get you through him." "That's it? That's the best I can hope for?" How could he be so calm? How could he just accept it? Her father canted his head and raised a thick brow. "That Bible of yours is getting awful dusty." Guilt pained in her chest. Dinah's face heated. He sighed and adjusted his hat. "I went by the post office while I was in town. And? She prompted, grateful for the change of subject. There is a letter from your brother. He wrote it to your mama. I should have waited, but... Her heart beat faster. What'd he say? He thought a moment, then stuck his hand inside his weathered brown coat and produced an unsealed envelope. You'd best read it for yourself. Dinah took the letter and climbed onto the seat as he went to the other side of the wagon. She pulled the folded paper from the envelope with nervous fingers, holding it open in her lap as the wind tried to snatch it from her grasp. Her father scooted in next to her, picked up the reins, and gave them a good snap. My dearest mother, I hope this letter finds you well. 3 weeks ago, I arrived in New York City, and it is a wonder to behold. A modern marvel. I have found a job as a telegraph operator that pays better than farming ever did, and with far less labor. Life is easier here, Mama. Safer and superior in every way. There are theaters and restaurants on every corner, and galleries filled with the finest art I have ever seen. This city is the paradise the West was promised to be. I hope that Dinah's anger toward me has faded with time, but I know better. She will understand someday, and when that day comes, there will be a place for her here, a place of culture and opportunity, the kind of life a lady deserves. Please write soon. All my love, Daniel. The nerve of him, Dinah growled. Less than a month in a big city, and he already thinks he's better than us. She shook her head in disgust as the wagon jostled along the familiar meandering road east toward home. She had a good mind to rip the letter to pieces and let the wind take it. One thought stopped her. Mama will never forgive me. Her father shifted and wouldn't meet her gaze. Dinah arched an eyebrow. Well, aren't you going to say something? He gave a half-hearted shrug. Truth is, Dinah, I don't know what to say. I do, she thought, riled and ready to let loose. We need him. The cattle, the harvest, he won't be here to help us. She shoved the letter back into the envelope and stuffed it inside her jacket. He'd rather strut around dinner parties and art galleries all day. I didn't want him to go, and I told him that, her father replied. But he's his own man now. The life he leads is his to choose, and so is yours. He cast her a sideways glance as she clung to the jolting seat. I can't leave you like this, and you know it, Dinah shot back. I can hire a couple hands. You can't pay him. He sighed and closed his eyes. The debt weighed heavy on him, on all of them. The little he made was like throwing a bucket of water on a wildfire. She wanted to scream. How many months, how many years would she waste because her father had borrowed money from the wrong man? How could they pay off a loan that never stopped growing? Let's talk about this later, her father said. The sun's out, weather's nice. We should take time to enjoy it. Dinah's gaze swept over the vastness of the prairie, green and teeming with new life, blooming with wild indigo and dandelions and yellow sundrops. She breathed in the fresh air, sweetly scented with honeysuckle and the mild fragrance of daisies. It helped a little. Taking one hand off the reins, he leaned down and picked up the paper lying at their feet. Here, I got today's copy of the Herald. Why don't you read it to me? She couldn't refuse. Perusing the paper on their way home had become a weekly custom, and she couldn't bring herself to disappoint him. Dinah opened to the first page and started reading. Salina's residents celebrated the advent of May and the abating of the plague that had recently afflicted Saline County. The grass grew green and tall, and the corn flourished, watered by frequent rains, too frequent for Dinah's liking. A concert company would perform at the Opera House next Wednesday. Her heart leaped with excitement, but her eager suggestion that they attend died on her lips. They couldn't afford to go. Not anymore. Her mood turned even fouler as she read of new expansions and construction and a fast-approaching railroad. We already have a depot. We don't need another one. Ain't about need, her father grumbled. It's about greed. Enemies to civilization. They call those who disapprove, she scoffed. We should rejoice at the puff of the engine, the clank of the shaft, and the hum of the machine, proclaiming that industry reigns within our border. I'll rejoice when those eastern bigwigs make themselves scarce around here. Dinah grunted in agreement. and skimmed until a certain section caught her attention. There is nothing half so sweet in life, half so beautiful or so lovable as a nice girl. Not necessarily a pretty or a dashing or an elegant girl, but a nice girl. One of those lovely, lively, good-tempered, good-hearted, sweet-faced, amiable, happy, domestic creatures met within the sphere of home, diffusing around the domestic hearth the influence of her goodness, like the essence of beautiful flowers. She snorted. What nonsense! Should we be loved only when we're cheerful and patient and oozing goodness wherever we go? Her father chuckled. I don't think the man meant any offense, Dinah. Sounds like he was trying to pay a compliment. Well, he did an awful job of it. Look at all those adjectives. They're nauseating. She laid the paper in her lap with a huff. I've had enough of civilized society for today. He didn't even go into town, he remarked with amusement. Exactly. The 8-mile journey home took well over an hour at Dusty's plodding pace, and Dinah spent every minute dreading the inevitable lecture she'd endure when her mother read Daniel's letter. She'll try to talk Dad into selling. Wouldn't be the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. He'll never give up on this place. Not after 16 years of fighting for it. Grackles and thrashers chirped and trilled as Dusty hauled the wagon over the hill. The land bowed before them. A lush cradle with cottonwoods and hackberries and white poplars blossoming along the river to the north. An old bur oak shielded their house from view as they approached from the west. On their left, the cattle heralded their arrival with a chorus of moos, and on their right, a sorrel quarter horse galloped across the pasture to greet them. Dinah grinned. Hey, Cardinal, she called as he trotted along the fence. I'll see you soon, okay? They followed the muddy path around the oak, white fluff from the cottonwoods swirling around their heads like falling snow. Her smile faded as they neared the house. Her father brought Dusty to a halt, and Dinah drew a breath of preparation. Go on, he encouraged. I'll be in soon. Reluctantly, she jumped down from the wagon. The windmill whined as she headed for the porch. Dinah, she stopped and looked back at her father. I'm glad you're here, he said. Heart squeezing, she smiled and then climbed the stairs. She paused at the door, pulled the envelope from her jacket, and frowned at Daniel's perfect penmanship. Dad should do this, not me. Dinah turned the knob and stepped inside, squinting as her eyes adjusted to the dimmer light. Vigorously, her mother swept the floor, her movements brisk and controlled. Dinah closed the door. The swishing broom stilled, and her mother turned around. Strands of strawberry blonde hair framed her flushed cheeks. The rest of her long tresses pinned up and away from her sweat-glistened neck. Dinah, she breathed. Her blue-green eyes widened as they darted to the envelope. Is that? From Daniel, she muttered with none of the enthusiasm that had brightened her mother's features. Her mother leaned the broom against the back of the couch and crossed the room with swift strides. She snatched the envelope from Dinah's extended hand and took out the letter, practically burying her nose in it as she went to the couch and sat, perched on the edge with anticipation. Dinah unbuttoned her jacket and hung it on a hook. Tugging off her gloves, she looked through the doorway to the left. Sunlight beamed through the window in the dining room, spilling onto the table and revealing swirling particles in the air. Her gaze wandered back to her mother's bowed head, then to the bookshelf in the corner, to the stone hearth and their framed pictures, lingering on the photograph of the four of them together. Oh, how she hated waiting, especially when she knew exactly what came next. Her mother looked over her shoulder. You already read this, didn't you? Meeting her gaze, Dinah raised her chin in defiance. Her mother sighed and laid the letter aside. Dinah, change is never easy, but you shouldn't resent your brother for wanting more out of life than this, she said, gesturing around them. He abandoned us. Her mother stood and faced her. You had your chance to get out of Kansas. If you'd married August. I didn't want to, Dinah cried. You were scared. Her mother huffed and put her hands on her hips. We all should have gone back east a long time ago, but you and your father won't let this place go. Dinah's fury burst from its fragile cage. You're the one trying to run away. Who wouldn't? She snapped, the vein between her brows bulging. Our life here has been one disaster after another. Fires, blizzards, locusts, outlaws robbing us of everything we had. You can't escape what's happened here, Dinah spat. Lydia's gone, just like Ophelia. Living somewhere else won't change that. Her mother flinched and paled. Instantly, Dinah regretted her venomous words. Her sharp tongue had reared its ugly head once again. Guilt demolished the iron wall of her anger and pierced her heart, killing the last of her willingness to argue. She'd seen that look before. Blank and glazed over, unreachable as the depths of a dark and endless pool. Dinah didn't know what to say. Her pride wouldn't allow her to apologize. So she just stood there, eyes pinned to the floor as pressure built inside her. She had to get away. Dinah threw her gloves on the floor and strode to the door. As she reached for the handle, it swung inward. She stepped back to avoid colliding with her father, whose blue eyes clouded when they met hers. Dinah ducked past him. The sun's welcoming warmth invigorated her as she stormed across the yard. Tears welled in her eyes. She pulled the pins from her hair and tucked them into the waistband of her split skirt. Thick waves tumbled down her back, blood pumping through her veins. Dinah threw open the barn doors, went inside and grabbed her bridle from the hook. She set off again, toward the horse's pasture. She gave a shrill whistle, and a neigh answered. Cardinal galloped toward her. As she unlatched the gate, he stopped and tossed his white-starred head. "Hey, boy," she said, giving him an affectionate pat before slipping the bit into his mouth and the leather over his ears. "Want to get out of here for a while?" Dinah led him from the field, closed the gate behind them, and looped the reins around his neck. Grasping a handful of fiery mane, she sprang onto his bare back. The slightest nudge of her heels against his sides made him trot with quick and eager steps. They turned south at the corner and loped along the fence. The other horses raised their heads from grazing and watched them go. Dusty, Sarge, and Belle, her brother's black mare. He'd left her behind, too. When they ran out of fence, Dinah let the reins glide through her fingers. Cardinal's neck extended, and he bounded up a grassy slope. Arriving at its crown, she sat back and said, "Whoa!" The gelding obeyed, but he tugged on the bit as she looked over at a small grave in the shade of a redbud tree. Lydia Hance, March 25th, 1869. Before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. They lost her 14 years ago. The little sister she'd never gotten to know, to grow up with. Tears forged burning trails down Dinah's cheeks as she urged Cardinal into a gallop, the wind rushing against her face and brushing them away. She still remembered the day she'd stepped off the train and seen Selina for the first time. Everything had felt so magical, like something out of a dream. She'd been thrilled to go on an adventure, to go out west. She'd heard all kinds of ridiculous stories, that it flowed with rivers of gold, that the trees grew as tall as mountains, but the prairie's deceptive beauty hid legions of horrors beneath, bones upon bones. She realized now how naive she'd been to believe that her family would live happily ever after in this land of endless toil and brutality that tried even the hardiest of souls. Still, she wouldn't trade it for a gilded cage. She'd seen what progress looked like, had watched it rot Selina from within. Dinah leaned forward and gripped tighter with her legs as they reached a flat stretch of open prairie. Cardinal lengthened his strides, his hooves hardly touching the ground. They eased into a perfect rhythm. Their hearts beat as one, their sights set on an infinite horizon. This is freedom. This is living. At the crest of the next hill, Dinah reined in Cardinal and frowned. A wall of ominous clouds lined the western sky. The black shroud hung low, moving fast and casting a sinister shadow over the land. Time to head back, she decided. That storm's gonna be a nasty one.